It happened on a Saturday. One of those clear, quiet afternoons where everything feels a little too still, like the world is holding its breath. I had just wrapped up a business meeting earlier than expected. Honestly, I was relieved. The past few weeks had been hectic, and I missed Carol. I figured I'd surprise her. Pick up her favorite tie from that little corner spot she loved. Maybe open the bottle of red we'd been saving since our anniversary. Something simple, something comforting. I just wanted to spend the evening with her. That was it. When I opened the door to our condo, I expected to be greeted by music, or maybe her humming in the kitchen like she sometimes did when she was in a good mood. But the apartment was quiet. Not peaceful quiet. The kind that makes you pause in the doorway and listen without knowing what you're listening for. At first, I thought maybe she was out on the balcony or taking a nap, but then I noticed something. The air smelled different. Not food. Not her perfume. It was subtle but sharp. A lingering scent that didn't belong. Cologne. A man's cologne. The kind that clings to skin and fabric and seems to announce itself in empty rooms. I stood there in the entryway, my hand still on the door, letting it close behind me slowly. My heart wasn't racing yet. Not really. But something had shifted. You know how you just feel it sometimes? Like your body knows something your brain hasn't caught up to? I dropped the takeout on the kitchen island and walked toward the bedroom. The hallway was warm. Too warm. Like the windows had been closed up and people had been moving around. The faintest sound came from the bathroom. The rush of water. The hum of a hairdryer maybe. But I didn't call out her name. When I stepped into the bedroom, everything I saw confirmed what my gut already knew. 2 wine glasses sat on the nightstand. One of them still had a red smudge of lipstick. Hers. The other, clear, untouched by gloss or color, had a faint ring of condensation. The kind you only see when someone just set it down. There was no wine bottle in sight. Just the glasses. Just enough to make me feel like I was witnessing something I was never supposed to see. And then there was the bed. Carol never slept on the left side. Not once in 5 years of living together. Even when I was away on business trips, I'd come home and that side would be perfectly made. She used to joke that it was my territory, and she didn't dare cross the line. But today, that side was rumpled. The sheets were bunched like someone had shifted in their sleep. A pillow was indented, not fluffed or fixed the way she always kept it. It didn't look like someone had just sat down. It looked like someone had been there. A strange numbness started settling in my chest. I didn't feel angry yet, just hollow, like the floor beneath me had started to tilt, and I hadn't realized I was sliding. I walked over to the laundry basket by the dresser. It wasn't overflowing. Carol was the type to stay on top of laundry almost religiously. But the lid wasn't fully closed, and something black poked out from the top. I pulled it out without thinking. A black t-shirt, athletic, slim fit. Not mine. Wrong size, wrong feel. I held it to my nose before I even knew what I was doing. The same scent. Cologne. Cheap, loud, designed to make an impression. It was too fresh. Like someone had worn it today. And just then, I heard the bathroom door open. Carol stepped out wrapped in a towel, her damp hair clinging to her shoulders. She froze when she saw me standing there, holding the shirt. But only for a second. No gasp. No wide eyes. No guilt. Just a pause and then a practiced smile. "Oh," she said, like she was commenting on the weather. "That's my brother's. He came by earlier. Changed here after his workout. He's going out clubbing with his friends tonight." That was it. No explanation for why he'd come by without texting. No mention of why he'd choose our place, not his own, to shower. No reason why he'd be in our bedroom. No reaction to the fact that I was holding his shirt like a forensic clue in the middle of a crime scene. I didn't say anything. I just nodded. What was I supposed to do? Call her a liar to her face? Start shouting? Demand receipts? The thing is, and I hate admitting this, her tone made it worse. She said it with this cold, detached confidence. Like she'd already thought through the story and knew exactly how to deliver it. No stutter. No hesitation. Just a smooth lie, gift-wrapped and hand-delivered with a bow. And the worst part? I accepted it. I nodded like an idiot and set the shirt down on the bed. She walked past me like nothing had happened. Like I hadn't just walked in on the ghost of someone else in our home. We barely talked the rest of the night. She made herself a drink, scrolled through her phone, and acted like I wasn't unraveling from the inside out. I went through the motions, poured myself a glass of wine, picked at the pad thai I'd brought, but none of it registered. Every sound felt muffled. Every moment felt staged, like we were pretending to be the couple we used to be. That night, lying in bed next to her, I couldn't sleep. She turned away from me, back facing me like she often did. But this time, it didn't feel mate. Felt intentional. I stared at the ceiling for hours. I replayed every second of that moment when I walked in. The scent, the glasses, the bed, the shirt, her expression, and the lie. I didn't believe it. Not really. But I didn't fight it either. Couldn't. Because part of me already knew the truth. And knowing meant things would have to change. Knowing meant I'd have to confront what I wasn't ready to lose. It wasn't just about a shirt. It was what it represented. An intruder. Presence. A secret I wasn't supposed to find. And something inside me, something deep, cracked open that night. It would be weeks before I'd admit to myself that this was the beginning of the end. But in that moment, under the soft hum of the bedroom fan, lying next to a woman who now felt miles away, I understood something I hadn't wanted to believe. I wasn't alone in this marriage. After that Saturday, everything changed. Not on the surface, maybe, but under it. On the outside, things looked the same. We still had coffee together in the mornings. Still said goodnight with a kiss. Still texted throughout the day. But underneath it all, I had questions. Questions that multiplied every time I looked at her. And worst of all, questions that I didn't know how to ask. What do you do when someone hands you a lie so smoothly that it makes you doubt your own instincts? That's what Carol had done. She'd made me question the one thing I'd always been sure of her. After that day, every little habit, every quirk I used to find charming, started to feel suspicious. The way she laughed a little too hard at her phone, then quickly turned the screen away. The way her eyes didn't linger on mine anymore when we talked. The way she started locking the bathroom door, something she'd never done before. At first, I told myself I was being paranoid, that I was projecting, that I'd walked in on something innocent and had let my insecurities build a story around it. But then came the patterns, the things I couldn't ignore. She stopped leaving her phone on the nightstand. Used to be, she'd leave it there charging overnight, volume on, buzzing occasionally with harmless notifications, Instagram, group chats with her sisters, some design clients. Now, it was always face down and silent, always in her hand or in her pocket. Even when she showered, she brought it with her. That was new. I tried to laugh it off. I told myself maybe she was just being cautious. People get paranoid about hackers and leaks, right? But this wasn't caution, it was possession. Like the phone held something sacred, something private that she didn't want wandering eyes to find. Then came the mood swings. One day she was cold, barely spoke to me, avoided touch, moved around the house like I was some stranger she was obligated to tolerate. Then the next, she'd be affectionate in a way that felt unnatural. Too much, too sudden. She'd come up behind me while I was working, wrap her arms around my chest, kiss the back of my neck. "You've been working too much," she'd whisper. "Let's get away this weekend. Just you and me." And for a second, I'd let myself believe her. I'd let myself pretend we were still us. Still the couple who danced barefoot in the kitchen at midnight, who stayed up late binge-watching documentaries and arguing over which ones were fake. But the moment I said yes to her weekend trip idea, she changed. Said her schedule was full, that she'd forgotten she had a pitch coming up. "Rain check," she said, smiling that tight, distant smile I'd started to hate. "Maybe next month." That's when I really started to unravel. I began paying attention to things I used to ignore, like how her work schedule no longer made sense. Carol's design agency had gone remote 2 years ago, and aside from the occasional in-person meeting, she almost never needed to be in the office. But suddenly, she was staying late multiple times a week. Sometimes, she'd come home late and head straight to the shower. I'd ask how the meeting went, and she'd give me these vague, scripted answers. Long, Exhausting. Same old chaos. I'd ask who was on the project. She'd name one or two people, always women. Never a guy. Never anyone new. One night, I suggested I swing by with coffee and surprise her at the office. She paused. Her expression changed for just a split second. "That's sweet," she said, after what felt like too long. "But we're moving buildings this week. Everything's a mess. I'd hate for you to see the chaos." That building never changed. I knew because the next day I drove past it. Just once. Just to look. Same entrance. Same logo on the door. Same potted ficus plants flanking the steps. No signs of renovation. No trucks. Nothing out of place. But I didn't say anything. I felt like I was slowly being pushed out of my own life. Like I was a guest who'd overstayed his welcome and didn't realize it. Started small. She stopped asking me about my day. Stopped laughing at my dumb impressions or quoting our favorite movies back at me. She'd always been the kind of person who left little notes around the house, inside my laptop, under my coffee mug, even tucked into my coat pocket. I hadn't found one in over a month. I brought it up once, casually. I said, "You used to leave me notes." She smiled, distracted, scrolling through her phone. "Guess I've just been busy." That word, busy, became her shield. Busy with clients. Busy with errands. Busy with her own thoughts. I started to feel like an interruption in her schedule, not a part of it. Then came the moment that finally made it real. I was in the kitchen one evening, trying to plan a surprise weekend trip. Something to jolt us out of this weird rut. I'd found this quiet cabin 2 hours north. It had a lake, a fireplace, no reception. Thought maybe it'd be good for us, no distractions, just time together. I printed out the reservation confirmation and brought it into the living room. She was on the couch, laptop on her knees, eyes locked on the screen. "Hey," I said gently, sitting next to her. "I have a surprise." She looked at me like I just said something offensive. "I'm kind of in the middle of something," she said. I showed her the paper anyway. "Just a weekend. This Friday to Sunday. I already booked it." Her eyes scanned it, and then she set it down slowly. "You didn't ask me," she said. "I know," I replied. "It was supposed to be spontaneous. You said we should do more spontaneous things." She closed her laptop, her mouth tight. "I can't go," she said. I waited. "Why?" I need space right now, okay?" That was it. No apology. No explanation. Just a wall. "I need space." It felt like the final nail in something I hadn't wanted to bury. I walked back to the kitchen and stood there, staring at the sink full of dishes, wondering how we got here. Wondering when she started needing space from me. We used to share everything. Now I couldn't even reach her. And what hurt the most was that I couldn't tell if I'd lost her to someone else, or if she just slipped away all on her own. But either way, I was starting to realize something terrifying. I might already be the third wheel in my own marriage, and I was the only one who seemed to notice. It happened by accident, the way these things always do. I wasn't snooping. Not really. I'd been working from home that morning, just wrapping up an invoice when my laptop froze mid-upload. Carol was out running errands, supposedly at Target, though by that point I'd stopped believing every errand she mentioned. But I didn't suspect anything in that moment. All I wanted was to email a document to our accountant before noon. Her tablet was on the counter, screen dark. I figured I'd airdrop the file to it, log into my email, send it, and be done. Harmless. The moment I picked it up, it unlocked to her home screen. No password prompt. I remember thinking that was odd. She kept her phone under lock and key like it held national security codes. But the tablet was wide open, like it didn't count. A notification blinked across the top of the screen. "You smell like me. I still feel you on my skin. Until Monday, Tigress Tigerface." It was from an app one didn't recognize. Something with a minimal white chat bubble icon. Not iMessage. Not WhatsApp. Something new. Something discreet. My stomach turned. I froze with the tablet in my hands, the words blaring in my face like a siren. I told myself to put it down, that this wasn't the way. But my fingers moved before my brain caught up. I tapped the notification. The app opened, and everything unraveled. The chat history was still open. Dozens of messages. Long ones. Voice notes. Pictures. He called her C with a heart. She called him R. I didn't recognize the name at first. Just an initial. And then a nickname. Red. I scrolled. I didn't even know what I was looking for at that point. Proof? Context? Closure? It didn't matter. The damage was immediate. I can't wait until you're mine for real. Every time he talks about you, I want to laugh. He has no idea. Our spot next weekend? Same time? He's gone again Thursday. Bring the wine. Each message hit harder than the last. There were photos. Selfies of him in our bed. Our bed. The same headboard Carol and I picked out together 2 summers ago. I saw her hand on his chest in one picture. Her nails still painted the shade I'd complimented the night before. They'd even taken a photo on our balcony. His arm around her waist. She was wearing my hoodie. My college hoodie. The one she used to steal because she said it smelled like me. Now it was draped on someone else. I dropped the tablet on the counter and just stood there, hands shaking. My breathing was shallow, like I couldn't get enough air into my lungs. I stared at the screen, blinking, thinking maybe it would go away, that I'd misread something, that I was dreaming. But the tablet stayed lit. The thread stayed open. The betrayal stayed real. I felt like I was on the outside of my own life looking in. Like I'd walked into someone else's story by mistake. One where I wasn't the husband, but the obstacle. They called me the tenant. That was the part that broke me. In one of the messages, he wrote, "Has the tenant left for his business trip yet?" And she replied, "Yep. Place is ours till Sunday. Come claim your queen face blowing a kiss." The tenant. That's what I'd become. Not her husband. Not her partner. Just the guy occupying the space they wanted to play house in. Suddenly, every strange moment from the last month reassembled itself like a puzzle snapping into place. The cologne that wasn't mine. The shirt in the laundry. The mood swings. The need for space. The office late nights. The canceled weekend trip. The phone glued to her palm. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't paranoid. I was being lied to, and the worst part was I'd known deep down. I just hadn't wanted it to be true. I picked up the tablet again and kept scrolling. Not because I wanted more pain, but because I needed to know just how far gone things really were. They had a full itinerary. Dinner plans. Weekend getaways. Jokes about movies they'd seen together. On nights she told me she had headaches or deadlines. He even mentioned helping her pick out furniture for the new place. New place? I sat down hard at the kitchen table trying to process it. Was she planning to leave me? Or worse? Had she already planned it and just not told me? I stared at the message again. The tenant. That was all I needed to see. I didn't cry. I thought I would, but I didn't. I just went numb. Like my brain flipped a switch to keep me from going into emotional shock. I stared at the grain of the wooden table like it had the answers I couldn't find in her texts. Eventually, I heard her key in the lock. I didn't move. The door opened. Grocery bags rustled. "Babe?" She called out casually. I didn't respond. She walked into the kitchen, keys in one hand, shopping bag in the other, her face bright, until she saw the tablet. Still on. Still open. Still glowing with the truth. Her eyes locked on the screen. Then on me. She froze. I didn't say a word. She set the bags down slowly, like she was disarming a bomb. "Mark," she said almost too calmly. "I can explain." I looked up at her. Just looked. No yelling. No accusations. She started to say something else, but I stood and walked out of the room. Not because I couldn't handle it, but because I could. I didn't want her explanation. I didn't want more lies, more spin, more lines rehearsed in the mirror. I'd already seen the truth. Unfiltered, unprompted, and raw. And once you've seen the naked truth, no version of it dressed in excuses can satisfy you. I shut the bedroom door behind me, sat on the edge of the bed, and stared at the spot where he had lain, where she let him in, where they laughed and whispered and plotted while I was working overtime to build the life she was busy burning down. My reflection stared back at me in the dark window glass. And all I could think was, she didn't just cheat. She did it here. In our home. In my space. While I was loving her the best way I knew how. And now I knew. And nothing would ever be the same. I didn't sleep that night. Not even a minute. I laid there in the dark, staring at the ceiling while Carol slept, or pretended to. She stayed on her side, back to me, breathing steady like she had no weight on her conscience. I didn't move, didn't speak. I just listened to the silence between us, thicker than anything we'd ever shared. I kept waiting for her to say something, to confess, to explain, to beg. But nothing came. She didn't even try, and that told me everything. By sunrise, I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't confused either. I was done. Not in the dramatic, yelling, throwing things kind of way. I didn't want fireworks. I wanted distance, clarity, freedom. So I got up, quietly. No slamming doors. No grand exits. Just quiet footsteps and a plan. First, I made coffee. That was the strange part. How normal it felt. Like any other morning. The sun hit the blinds just right. The fridge buzzed like it always did, and the coffee maker hissed with steam. But something in me had changed. Permanently. While the coffee brewed, I opened my laptop. I wasn't thinking like a man betrayed anymore. I was thinking like a man preparing for a transition. First, I changed the passwords. All of them. Streaming accounts, banking apps, utilities, even the door lock on our smart home system. Anything she could access, I locked. I revoked her admin privileges. Removed her fingerprint from the system. I wasn't gonna let her walk in and out like she still owned this space. Next, I pulled out her suitcase from the hallway closet. The good one. The one she used for girls' trips. I packed neatly. 2 pairs of jeans, a few dresses, her favorite jacket, some makeup, her charger, her laptop, her shoes. Enough to get her through a few weeks. I didn't want her to come back under the excuse of grabbing. Just one more thing. Every item I touched felt like an artifact. I packed them without emotion, like they belonged to someone I used to know but didn't anymore. By 8 a.m., the bags were lined up by the front door. I printed one photo, just one, and slid it into an envelope. The one where she sat on his lap, in my hoodie on our balcony. Her face half hidden behind her hair, laughing at something he whispered. I didn't write a note. I didn't need to. That picture said everything. She came downstairs an hour later. Her hair was up, no makeup, oversized sweater. She froze when she saw the bags. Her eyes flicked to the envelope sitting on top. She didn't say a word. Not right away. I didn't offer her coffee. Finally, she asked, "What is this?" I didn't answer, just looked at her. She stepped toward the suitcase slowly, opened the envelope, and slid out the photo. Her breath caught. She stared at it for a long time, like it might morph into something else if she just blinked enough. Then she put it back in the envelope and set it down. Still no apology. No breakdown. Instead, her face twisted into something ugly. "You went through my stuff," she said, voice low. I tilted my head slightly. That was her angle? That was the fight she wanted to pick. "You violated my privacy," she added, louder now. "You had no right to look at my tablet." I gave a half nod. Calm. Controlled. She stepped closer. "You think that justifies this? Kicking me out? Seriously?" I looked down at the bags, then back at her. "No one's kicking you out. I'm simply making room for what's already been happening." She scoffed. "Don't be dramatic." I didn't reply. She grabbed the edge of the counter, trying to steady her voice. "You think this is about him? It's not. It's about us. About how checked out you've been. About how I've felt invisible in my own home." There it was. The shift. The spin. She stepped toward me, eyes narrowing. "You don't get to act like a victim. You're not perfect. You work late. You're distracted. You stopped asking about my day. You created this." I stayed still. Let her talk. Let her reach for any rope that might save her from the free fall. "I needed connection," she said, voice cracking. "I needed to feel like I mattered." I stared at her for a long moment. then said, "You didn't just look for connection. You built a second life." She flinched like I'd slapped her. Then the anger returned. "You're trying to control me." I raised an eyebrow. "By asking you to leave the home you've already emotionally moved out of?" She turned, pacing now. "You don't control my career, my decisions, my freedom. You don't get to take everything from me just because you're hurt." I exhaled slowly. "I'm not taking anything. I'm just letting go." That line stopped her cold. She stood there, in the middle of the room, surrounded by suitcases and silence, and for the first time, I saw something flicker across her face. Not rage, fear. The kind of fear that comes when the mask starts to slip and you realize the person you underestimated isn't going to play the role you cast them in anymore. "You don't mean this," she said softly. "You'll regret this." I shook my head. "No. I should have done it the moment you called me the tenant." Her face drained of color. I walked past her, opened the front door, and stood to the side. She didn't move at first. Then, slowly, she picked up her bags one by one. No drama, no crying, just quiet acceptance. On the way out, she paused. "You think you're better than me?" "No," I said. "But I never lied to you in our own home." She looked away, then stepped into the hallway. I closed the door behind her, locked it, leaned my forehead against it for a second, then turned around and faced the silence. It didn't feel hollow, felt like air, like oxygen returning to a space that had been choked for too long. The apartment felt clean. Later that day, I removed her access from every account. Smart lock, Wi-Fi, utilities, banking, streaming services. I shut it all down. I contacted a lawyer. I didn't tell her, just got the process started. I called a locksmith to install a manual lock on top of the digital one, just in case. And then I sat down in the middle of the living room and let the weight of it all settle. No shouting, no broken plates, no begging, just quiet consequences. She wanted independence. Now she had it. No rent, no insurance, no more contacts I funneled her way through friends and colleagues. No more evenings with wine and comfort and a man who believed in her when no one else did. Everything was gone, just like me. 2 days after I told her to leave, she resurfaced. Not in person, but online. That was how she always operated when real confrontation didn't suit her. She preferred the arena of filtered selfies and curated captions, where she could control the narrative. And she wasted no time doing exactly that. I was scrolling mindlessly that morning, sipping coffee from my favorite chipped mug, the one she always said was ugly. I hadn't checked her page in a while. Figured she'd go dark or block me altogether. But there it was. Not private. Not subtle. A mirror selfie in what looked like a hotel bathroom. Dim lighting, towel on the floor behind her, hair pulled back like she was trying to look effortlessly distressed. Her eyes glassy. A frown soft and practiced. The caption read, "Some men are just afraid of strong women." All I wanted was to be heard. I stared at it for a while, coffee cooling in my hands. Not because I was shocked, but because it was exactly what I expected. That caption was textbook Carol. Vague enough to avoid specifics, dramatic enough to invite sympathy, and perfectly engineered to make her look like the victim without having to say what she'd done. I watched the likes roll in. Comments from people I'd never met. Some of them mutual friends. One from a girl we used to double date with. "You've always been the strong one. Proud of you for speaking your truth, Redheart." Another, "You deserve someone who sees your light." I didn't comment, didn't hit like. I didn't even **T it. Not yet. I just sat with it. Let the bile rise and then settle. She was trying to rewrite the story in real time, banking on the assumption that I would stay silent. That I'd take the high road while she paved her own path in pity and poetic dishonesty. But here's the thing, the internet isn't as loyal as it used to be. Especially not when the truth leaks out. First, I said nothing. I didn't want to play her game. I didn't want to be the guy airing dirty laundry in the comments, even though every part of me wanted to. Instead, I waited. And then, a few hours later, I saw it. A single comment, buried halfway down her post. from someone I didn't know. Just a username, no profile picture. But their words stopped everything. Really? Strong women cheat in their own bed while their husband is away on work trips? No emojis. No hashtags. Just the sentence, cold, surgical, devastating. It sat there like a lit fuse. I refreshed the post. The likes were still coming in, but slower. A few replies to the comment appeared. Defensive ones. You don't know what went on in their relationship. Wow, bitter much? This isn't your business. But the damage was done. That one sentence cracked the veneer she'd been building. The perfect image, the curated heartbreak, the performance. All of it suddenly looked like theater. Because someone somewhere knew. And they spoke. Just loud enough for people to hear. Then came another comment. Different person. Not judging. But you might want to tell the whole story. And another. Pretty rich, coming from someone who called her husband the tenant. That one almost made me laugh. I knew exactly where it came from. Someone had seen the texts. Maybe she'd shared too much. Maybe the guy she cheated with had a big mouth. Maybe a mutual friend had caught wind of it. I didn't care how it got out. I just knew it was finally breathing in open air. By the end of the day, the post had been edited. The caption was gone. Just a single emoji now, black heart. Like that would erase what had already taken root. The next morning, it was deleted entirely. And that's when I realized something. She wasn't sorry. She was embarrassed. There's a difference. Carol didn't regret what she'd done. She regretted that she got caught. That someone had pierced her shield of ambiguity with just enough truth to sour the crowd. She wasn't mourning the loss of our marriage. She was mourning the loss of control over the narrative. She stopped posting after that. No sad selfies. No vague quotes about healing. Just silence. And maybe, finally, that was the most honest thing she'd done. Meanwhile, the silence gave me room to think. Not just about her, but about how many people had quietly suspected all along. How many had seen the signs and said nothing. Or worse, watched it happen in real time and turned away. I started getting texts. Quiet ones. From people we knew casually. From old friends we drifted from. From coworkers who had always sensed something was off. One of her coworkers DM'd me on Instagram. Said they didn't want to stir the pot, but felt like I should know that Carol had brought R around the office more than once. Introduced him as a friend, then told people I was complicated and checked out. Another message came from someone I hadn't spoken to in years. Said they saw her at a restaurant weeks ago, holding hands with a guy who wasn't me. They assumed we'd split already. Didn't want to intrude, they said. But I feel sick now knowing you had no idea. That was the thing, so many people knew. And none of them told me. Not because they wanted to hurt me, I think, but because no one ever wants to be the messenger. No one wants to get involved. They all wait for the explosion and then pretend they were nowhere near the blast. But I wasn't mad at them. Not anymore. Because in a weird way, those late messages and secondhand confessions gave me what I needed most. Confirmation that I hadn't imagined this. That it was real. That I wasn't crazy. I was just the last to know. A few days later, I saw Carol's car parked outside a small cafe we used to go to. I almost kept driving. Almost. But I pulled into a spot down the block and watched through the window. She was alone. Sitting by the window with a coffee and her phone. No makeup. That same oversized sweater she always wore when she felt misunderstood. She kept glancing around like she was expecting someone. Or avoiding someone. And in that moment I felt nothing. Not anger. Not grief. Not longing. Just a kind of exhausted clarity. She looked like someone who was waiting for the world to understand her version of the story. Still hoping someone, somewhere, would hand her the validation she didn't earn. I rolled the window up and drove away. That was the day I deleted every photo I had of us. Not out of spite, but because I didn't need the reminder anymore. The good memories weren't erased. They just didn't belong to the same story now. They were part of a chapter I'd closed. She could post whatever she wanted. Say whatever she needed to say to sleep at night. But the truth? It had already spoken. And it didn't need filters. We met at a cafe, her idea. She came with no makeup, wearing the jacket I once gave her. She tried to explain, saying I'd grown distant, but I laid a photo on the table, her on his lap in my sweater. Her words stopped. No excuses, no apology, just silence. Paid, stood, and left. That silence behind me said more than she ever could. She didn't chase me. That's when I knew I was finally free. A month passed. I changed my number, reclaimed my money, packed away her things. Dinners were quiet, but for the first time that silence brought peace. She kept texting. Rage, regret, confusion. Her last message said, "Sorry it ended like this," but it didn't end. She destroyed it. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. In the quiet, I found myself again. In solitude, I found the truth. And that became my home.